Welcome everyone to our second Portal Gatherings speaker panel. That's a mouthful, right? This is our second get one. This is where we're all going to get together, meet the speakers, have some discussions on certain subjects. And this week or this month subject is fear. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our lovely speaker here. She is a own Your Body language expert. She runs this website as well as teaches classes. I've taken them. They're absolutely amazing. I do recommend them for everyone. She is also a co-producer for Portal Gatherings, and she's my very, very good friend. Introducing Agnieszka.
Thank you very much, Colleen. I just to catch you guys up, what we're going to do is we're going to do a few minutes presentation each, like sort of our way of addressing fear. And it's going to start with me and then Holly and then Gerardo. And then at the end, we're all going to be, sharing notes, combining notes. Where's my camera? So how do you know that you have fear or that you're stressed out and that you're anxious in your body? How do you know? Maybe not in your body, but how do you know? What is one thing that you can see right away that'll teach you or let you know what level of stress you're at? Well, the fastest thing, the thing where it shows up first is your face. Holly's going to be talking about how it shows up in your body later, but in reality, it's your face that it starts off. So say you come home from a busy day at work, or you come home from a get together with friends and you're feeling a little bit off. And the first thing that's going to show up is maybe like a wrinkle between your eyebrows, right? You might also have some kind of a pushing of the eyeballs closed. So if you were to come home and you're feeling a little anxious in your tummy and you were to look at yourself in the mirror, you would see little signs in your muscle patterns. But how do we know that these signs are actual fear or what emotions they are? Well, they're micro expressions. So one thing that I teach is face reading, and in face reading, what we do is we study the micro expressions in the habitual patterns. So not the micro expressions the way that guy from Lie to Me or the idea, the progenitor of the idea, studied it, where he filmed somebody and every time they lied, they would scrunch their face for a microsecond. I'm going to mute Rowan here. They would scrunch their face for a microsecond, but he would film them and then he would slow it down and he would see what kind of emotion came up for a microsecond before they said a certain thing. But if you have a certain thought over and over and over a number of times in your brain, what happens is those little micro expressions become habitual. And so they repeat and they repeat. And if they repeat 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times, you're going to have a line or a wrinkle or some kind of a thing. And when I studied face reading and psychosomatic therapy, we would work on our muscles in the face to release that frustration, the fear, the judgment, the screw you. This is the screw you muscle. I don't like what you're saying. But there are different variations of that depending how you hold your lips and how you hold your bottom lip. But no matter what difference it shows up in your face, you can always study your face and try to figure it out, connect with that inner child, because all of those micro expressions, all of those little scrunches, I don't even know the right word right now. All of those little muscle movements, they tell you a story about how you're really feeling. And so sometimes, and this shows up in the body as well. You may be feeling fine, I'm fine. But then you find yourself, you're like pressing your fingers against each other as hard as you can, but you're fine. You're fine. You're just talking. You're having a conversation. But under the desk, there's something like this going on. Or maybe it's your foot when there's nothing going on. You're just in a Zoom meeting. It's a little bit stressful and you find your foot pressing into the ground or pressing somehow where the tension and and the emotions you're not expressing in the meeting or in the conversation that you're having is being expressed somewhere through the body by maybe sometimes what I do is I'll put my hand on my hip and I'll like bend my fingers backwards when I'm stressed out with the conversation. So it just looks like I'm in a power pose. I got my hands on my hips, which is not really a power pose, but say I hold my hands on my hips, but I'm not really, what I'm feeling is feeling a little defensive. My elbow, which is solar plexus, is sticking right out, and my fingers are pushing in. And if you think about the actual part of the hand, and I do teach all of this in my courses, but when I'm pushing with my fingers against my waist like that, this is the throat chakra in my hand. So I'm actually holding back my expression by pushing that hand really, really hard against my side or against the chair or against each other. You know, there are different ways. So you can start looking at yourself in the mirror and really analyzing all of those little micro expressions and all of those little muscle patterns to see maybe emotions that you haven't even become aware of yet. And when those emotions stay in your body for a longer time, maybe months or years, Holly will tell you what happens then.
Thank you so much, guys. All right. So I was going to do slides, but maybe I won't. I'll just keep it simple. What do you think? We'll just keep it simple.
Do whatever you want.
All right. Well, I do have slides available, but we were having technical issues earlier, so I will, with that in mind, we'll keep the sound issues there. We'll keep that there. So what I'm going to talk about the kidney fear connection and why fear is settled into your kidneys. Okay, so thank you for being here today. It's probably going to sound a little weird that, you have fear, which is an emotion, is connected to some part of your body. But according to New German medicine and traditional Chinese medicine, these two are both unrelated, but they're all interconnected. So when your mind and your emotions are all connected to different parts of your organs. So that's both with New German and traditional Chinese medicine. I'm going to focus tonight a little bit on traditional Chinese medicine and its connection to kidneys. So we're going to dive right into it. So what do kidneys actually do? They remove the waste and extra fluid from your body. They maintain a crucial balance of water, salts, minerals like sodium, calcium, phosphorus, and potassium in your blood. Now, with this balancing act, all your nerves, muscles, and other tissues are able to function properly. And they're located on the small of your back. They're about the size of your fists, and they're just below your rib cage. So if you feel pain in your lower back or anything there, that's usually your kidneys talking. So now, sitting right on top of your kidneys is the adrenal glands. Now, we're going to remember that your adrenal glands are right there attached to your kidneys because we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. So, now in traditional Chinese medicine, as well as German medicine, both these view the body as interconnected. So, emotions and physical health are very, very entwined. And when we start thinking about how fear or happiness or anxiety, when you're anxious, if it's in your stomach, or when you're scared, you catch your breath, you can't breathe. That's that's according to New German medicine, is fears in the lungs. But I associate fear with the kidneys more, so that's what we're focusing on. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the kidneys are the storehouse of your vital energy and essence, and what they call Jing. They provide you with willpower and drive to accomplish your goal. Right? So, and here's the fear connection, that in traditional Chinese medicine, the fear and the kidneys are associated. So, have you ever noticed that fear could sometimes make you feel like you need to run to the bathroom? And there's a physical and psychological reason for that. Your kidneys and adrenal glands, again, like I spoke earlier, are intensely connected with your body's fight or flight response. So when you experience fear, your adrenal glands will kick into high gear, producing adrenaline and cortisol. They're both stress hormones. These hormones prepare your body to either flight or fight, in the danger or flee from it. Sorry, guys. This is why fear can sometimes literally make you weak in the knees or have you like, again, a pain in the lower back. So when your kidneys are balanced and your energy is abundant, you're going to feel confident and secure. You're going to feel really optimistic about the future. You're going to be able to pursue your goals and connect to, your sense of purpose. But when fear is excessive or chronic, like long-term toxic relationships, situations, or PTSD, then it can deplete your kidney energy and leading to excessive worry and anxiety, feeling really insecure, isolated. You're going to have a lack of courage to move forward in life, and you're going to have difficulty making decisions. And so when this becomes a cycle, then the fear is going to deplete your kidney energy, and low kidney energy makes us more susceptible to fear. So you can see how that just will keep working yourself into a pit until you find a way out of it, right? So now how can we find our way out of it? We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, we're going to talk about the physical signs of a kidney imbalance. So some of the common signs that your kidney is stressed are lower back pain, weakness in the lower back, frequent urination or urinary incontinence, ringing of the ears or hearing issues, premature graying, loss of hair, bone problems like osteoporosis, and night sweats or feeling unusually cold. So this kidney is also connected to the ears, so hearing problems like tinnitus might actually be a sign that your kidneys need a little bit of extra attention. So this is how we can maintain healthy kidney energy, and then we can manage our fear. So the most practical approach is slow down and rest. In our modern adrenaline-fueled lifestyle, that we can deplete our kidney energy over time. So taking essential, like regular breaks, is really essential. Stay warm, especially in your lower back, your feet, and your hands, because the kidney energy is easily damaged by cold. Proper nutrition is really, really important, especially as we age. So we need to nourish ourselves very, very consciously to support our kidney health and address your fears. This is going to be the hardest part. But facing what frightens you can help break that cycle of fear and energy depletion in your kidneys. And gentle movement practices like Tai Chi or Qigong can help balance your kidney energy. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the kidneys are associated with the water element. So water is all about flow and adaptability and finding the path of least resistance. When our water element is balanced, we move through life with flexibility and strength, not rigid, but flowing around our obstacles, right? So water can be gentle as the morning dew or powerful enough to carve canyons. It will always find a way forward. And that's the energy of healthy kidneys, persistent, patient, and ultimately unstoppable. So I would like to end with a thought that I think is very empowering, and that there's no separation between mind and body and between your emotional and physical health. They're completely intertwined. So when you care for your emotional well-being and when you address your fears rather than letting them consume you, you're also caring for your physical health. And then when you nurture your physical body, you're also supporting your emotional resilience. So the next time you feel that pulse of fear shooting through your body, just remember your kidneys. Take a deep breath, place your hands on your lower back, and just send some really loving energy to these incredible little organs that work so hard for you. So thank you. And I'm going to introduce our next guest. He is the author of Taking Back My Mind, My Journey Out of Depression, Gerardo.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is a beautiful, beautiful collection of beautiful souls here. There's a little bit of construction going on next door, so I apologize if there's some noise. And I'm really hoping there's no tech issues here because I live in the mountains in Oaxaca, and the Wi-Fi is pretty spotty, so let's just hope for the best. Um, so yeah, a little backstory on me and what I'm doing now and what led up to my current life. About 7 years ago, I was trapped in a really bad depression. Really at the end of my rope. Some things happened in life, divorce, my dad died. Life just took like a major shit on me and really sunk me. And it was really bad, like borderline suicidal. And I tried everything. I tried antidepressants. I tried therapy. I tried everything that was available for me, but nothing worked, and it just got worse and worse for almost a year. And then one day I decided to eat magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, with my brother and took a walk on the beach. And that day, in a matter of hours, the depression just disappeared. Um, Probably heard some of these stories by now. This was 7 years ago, so it wasn't quite as mainstream as it is now. So since that day, I started studying psychedelics, the science of psychedelics, how it works, combining that with philosophy, with exercise, with breath work and cold exposure, and a lot of physical things that I had done before. But combining these three things, really using the body, using the psychedelics to create neuroplasticity and like really rewrite the stories that we tell, um, and combining these things together was so powerful. And so that's what led to, the writing of this book. Then the writing of this book brought me to Oaxaca to study the mushrooms and start working with shaman and curandera down here. Um, Went deeper into that practice. And so now I run retreats and sacred mushroom ceremonies here in the mountains, and I help other people heal their issues, everything from, major PTSD to uh, chronic stress, chronic anxiety, eating disorders, just like really the worst mental states that people suffer with. And so I've been doing that for the last several years now. And so that's what I teach. And this formula, it's so powerful because what we're doing is really going back to the basics and using nature, harnessing the power of nature, the wisdom and the cosmic intelligence and wisdom that lives in nature and in the body. And so, of course, the mushrooms are from nature, the first life form on Earth, the fungal kingdom. That combined with physical practices like breath work and heat exposure and cold exposure, exercise to really recalibrate the nervous system, because fear is everything's a story. We're over 95% subconscious beings. So we don't really actually know exactly who we are until we really start to dive deep into these practices, whether it's through psychedelics or just meditation, yoga, just contemplating where your deepest fears come from. And a lot of people's fears sometimes are carried forward. It's ancestral. I've had plenty of ceremonies where people have these realizations that their lineage suffers from a certain phobia that they never had any direct experience with, and they just carry it forward through epigenetics, through the passing forward of these things that are adaptive, and evolutionarily we need to do that to hang on and remember the dangers that there are in life, right? So that gets compressed into the cells of our body, so we remember these things. So there's very few things powerful enough to allow us to tap into the subconscious and experience these phobias and experience these fears somatically through felt experience. It's not in the mind, it's in the body. And so that's the basic formula that I work with now is harnessing and using the power of nature to get to know ourselves, get to know what our fears are, why we fear them. In this process, it's like a formula, a methodology. In this process, we again harness neuroplasticity. And so, that third pillar of philosophy, which I started studying Stoic philosophy as I was writing the book. And I just fell in love with it because it is a philosophy that teaches you some very profound but very simple to understand terms and writings on how to deal with stress. For me, it's the best philosophy specifically on how to deal with fear, how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with stress. Um, and in this process, then you rewrite the story. Then you tell yourself and you train yourself. So my whole process is like training. And I've been an athlete my whole life, so I have that mentality, an athlete mentality of you retrain yourself and you increase your stress tolerance, you rewrite the story, you do the physical practices to increase your stress threshold. increase your stress tolerance, and that way you go into the day more calm, attacking it mentally, physically, and then of course using the power of nature. Um, so that's the methodology in a nutshell, that I of course dive into all the details and the science of it in the book. Um, but that's pretty much my approach on how to deal with fear.
Yeah, I also had an experience with mushrooms where I overcame fear. It was during the big earthquake in Acapulco, where there were over 300 earthquakes in one night. And by the next morning, I was like, and I called somebody who brought me some mushrooms, and I stood in front of the ocean, took the mushrooms, and I said, no. And then a realization came like that very second when I was standing there in front of the ocean that if you're meant to die, you're going to die. There's nothing you can do about it. But if you're not meant to die, you're going to be that guy on the tree hanging there while the tsunami is going beside you, you know? Like you cannot die unless you're supposed to die. And if you're supposed to die, you cannot not die. So the whole premise of the fear of death is very mind-boggling if you really think about it.
Yeah, that I'd like to add to that that's one of the major fears that do get resolved in during, a psychedelic experience is the fear of death, because the experience itself is a death. It is a death of the ego, especially the higher dose journeys, the higher dose ceremonies, where your ego and your identity dissolves and it does feel like a death, and then you come out the other side. Um, there's, plenty of research on end of life cancer patients that have gone through this experience, and over like 90% of them lose their fear of death at the end of their life. So death, yeah, death is like the ultimate fear, right? That's the basis of all fears. So if you resolve that within you, in your subconscious, in your body, and then you're at peace with it, then a lot of the other fears dissipate.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, just since everybody's here and paying attention, we're going to have another portal panel about death specifically in October, about transitions. And one of our speakers, who is an expert on death and wrote 2 books on death, uh, the last one being From Death to Dance, how she transformed her life. She's going to be speaking in the panel in October. It's like second Wednesday of October. And of course, we're going to be sending emails, so make sure you're on the mailing list for portal gatherings, and then you'll be informed. But yeah, some really cool portal panels are coming up. But okay, back to fear. I just had to add that because you made me think about it with the death thing.
So I did mention that the difference between traditional Chinese medicine, where they associate fear with kidneys, and then I did briefly touch on the fact that New German medicine touches on fear for your lungs. And Agnieszka had mentioned it in the chat that we would expand on that. And I don't know if it was traditional New German, or was it your psychoschematic where you were saying that it was a fear of taking up space, or
So in psychosomatic therapy, the lungs thing is like, I don't want to take a breath because, like, oh my God, what's going to happen if I take another breath? Like, bad things can happen, and like, better not, better stay quiet, better hide, better put a bag over my head and go in the corner and not make any noise, because, and that's the lung fear. That's like, right? But the kidney fear is more like running away from somebody who's chasing you, and you're deathly afraid for your life specifically. So it's like a very different thing, but it's the same thing. You know what I mean? And that's where actually the kidney fear, that's where the adrenochrome comes from too. To touch on the very contentious subject, because the adrenals are what produces that, and being afraid to death is what produces the adrenaline, right, in your body, which is maybe good once in a while when you're in physical danger because it gives you superpowers, but it's not good to be in a constant state of fear, because then your body can be worn down, and you won't be able to, like, your internal organs may be affected after a prolonged exposure to fearful states.
Well, it definitely causes damage long term. stress, high anxiety. It wears away on all your stomach, your kidneys, your lungs. It wears around on everything, a high stress, fearful state, a constant PTSD, gaslighting, being in a toxic relationship where you're tiptoeing around people, that can definitely cause a lot of stress and ulcers and just on all your organs. It's not healthy. Even though it looks good on the surface, you could it and you think you can manage it, say it's taking a toll on the inside, regardless of what you tell yourself. Do we have any questions?
Hi there. Yes, I have a question. Fascinating stuff. Great presentation, everyone. I do have a question for each presenter. So I'll start with the first one. Agnieszka, I'm kind of curious about the topic you mentioned. I'm skipping on the name there, but Holly just mentioned it now, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit about like how you learned this. Like, who did you learn it on your own? Did someone teach you? So I was
Psychosomatic therapy.
psychosomatic therapy. Yes.
Yeah, I actually learned it in Calgary, starting in 2010, and I was super interested in it. I met this guy from Australia who is the founder of psychosomatic therapy. He combined a bunch of other studies, kinesiology and other things to create this system where all the chakras and all of the micro expressions and all of the muscle systems are sort of combined in like a chart where you can connect every emotion to a chakra and then also to an experience, like, you know what I mean, in your body where it may show up as a disease or tension or something like that.
Awesome, thanks. And Gerardo, I do have a question. I'm not super familiar with mushrooms. I was wanted to ask you: is there like if someone's interested in learning more about, uh, is it psilocybin? Is it like
Yes, psilocybin.
like do you have? Is there any kind of prerequisites if someone's interested in trying that? Like, do people need to have specific diets, or like what are some
Yeah,
recommendations or suggestions that you might have for someone who has not done that before?
right. Has never. Yeah, it's really quite user friendly actually. It's the psychedelic that I definitely recommend starting with if you've never done anything because it's quite yeah, it has a really powerful symbiosis with our body and it's extremely safe to use as well. So you don't really need any kind, I mean, you need the preparation and the whole program going into it, but your body is very conducive for the psilocybin. So unless you have like a history of schizophrenia or psychosis in your family, there really is nothing that is worrisome that would that would counteract. It is important to not be on antidepressants, specifically antidepressants, SSRIs. And I always tell people to try and get off all medications a few days before. So that is pretty important, especially the antidepressants. But aside from that, it is universally safe for all human beings. You know, we evolved with psilocybin over millions of years, and so it really is meant for our expansion of consciousness and healing. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And
Absolutely, yeah, and I can drop my website where I have a lot of information and you can,
you read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to ask you.
yeah, definitely.
Cool,
I'll
thanks.
drop it in the chat. Yeah, and that's what I'm doing here in Oaxaca, so we do I live at a retreat center and we do sacred mushroom ceremonies and retreats here. So if you're ever down this way or know anybody who wants to come down and visit this beautiful area, it also is very nice that it's so beautiful. Yeah, we're doing this full time.
Thank you, Gerardo.
You're welcome.
And it is a beautiful place. I've never been, so I'll definitely have to check it out one day.
Incredible.
What about Holly? Did you have a question for Holly?
Yeah, Holly, it was curious when Agnieszka was talking about psycho. I'm sorry, I keep blanking on that name. Is it psychosomatic? Um, my train of thought went directly to German New Medicine. I'm not too familiar on the topic, but I did want to ask her, could she share a little bit more about? I had not heard that before, like how fear really affects the kidney. So um, I was wondering if she could expand a little bit more on how our emotions, what we actually feel, or specifically in this case, fear, truly affects not only the kidneys, but if your kidneys are messed up, then it affects other organs in your body as well. So I just found that extremely fascinating. I was hoping if she could expand on that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So they're all different parts to different parts of the body. Traditional Chinese medicine and German New Medicine do not completely align up. Like I had mentioned in fear with German New Medicine, it's the lungs. With traditional Chinese, it's the kidneys, right? But they both make sense, like Agnieszka was talking about earlier, because you do catch your breath and go, and then your adrenaline rushes and then it goes through your bloodstream. So fear is something that will take over the whole body, including the mind. The mind will go blank and stuff. But if you've got anger, that'll take over your mind. Now, anger, if you hold it back, it's going to give you a sore throat or you're going to have like chest problems. But also, if you hold it in, you're going to have stomach issues. Now, when you're holding in anger, most people will get ulcers because they're holding in anger, unresolved feelings, issues. They're just holding everything in, right? And as well as like from to your intestines, if you're constantly getting uh anxiety, IBS, things like that, then that's another anxiety thing. If your intestines aren't completely balanced, then you can get depression. A lot of depression is from parasitic guts, actually. So, if it's a good to do a cleanse if you do have a depression before even try mushrooms. But on a side note, I did have Gerardo do kind of that kind of the same technique that you were talking about with my daughter. She was on antidepressants, and so I weaned her off antidepressants and got her on mushrooms to microdose mushrooms, and now she's on nothing. She's off the antidepressants and she doesn't microdose anymore. So that really helped that breaking free from antidepressants.
Wow, that's amazing. And one last thing, and anyone can answer this, but maybe Gerardo would know more about it. If what's the difference between, I have been hearing on Netflix, like, there's some documentaries on Netflix in regards to like mushrooms and things like that. Like, how is it different? Like the mushrooms that you say are like the way it's being done in Oaxaca, for example, as opposed to like a setting like in the Western psychological kind of framework, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
like how in the Western, like here in, I don't know if it's happening all over the world, but here in the United States, like it's a thing now where in psychology they're using mushrooms, but I think in a very different way than how traditionally or historically the indigenous people are using them. So could you answer that, please?
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a great question, and you're asking the right person because my whole path started science-based. My book is very, very science-based. I've never really been, I apologize for the construction. I hope it's not too much. Um, I was never religious, so even spiritual. I wouldn't say I was very spiritual up until I came here and I started to see the magic here. So I started this whole thing on the therapeutic side of it, researching and studying how they're doing it in the universities and that whole aspect. And there is like a Western model, Western therapeutic model, I would say. And then down here in the mountains and other places throughout the world, but this is like the origin and the epicenter of these practices. It goes back thousands of years, you know. Here it's much more spiritual based, right? And so there are definitely differences, and they're two, um, I guess, different worlds, yet they're both true. Like I've witnessed things here that science cannot explain. I've witnessed spirituality and things that we cannot see with the naked eye that are just so profound and such profound healing. And so here it is that tradition of prayer, energy, a lot of different things, different tools, different plants that we burn, different mantras and things like that. Where the Western model, therapeutic model, is very precise. It is to music, and you put eye shades on. You may have seen if you saw How to Change Your Mind, the Netflixers, right? So they have eye shades, and there's a specific playlist that's designed by universities to take you into your subconscious and dig into some traumas and things like that. So very advanced technique that they have. Really powerful, high dose. Here they don't use music. Here it's carried out in silence. So it's almost like a meditation, yet it's more like seeing a spiritual doctor, because the more important part here is the shaman, the curandera, to eat the mushroom themselves, because that's the tool for them to see what you have, and then prescribe whatever sort of remedies they prescribe, which a lot of it is like prayer, for example, is like have faith in God, things like that. So it's a whole different world, yet it works. And so what I do is since I came from the science therapy side of it, but then I've been so immersed in the spiritual side of it. I now I'm very spiritual. I believe in that even more so than the science side. So I combine both of them. Since I'm here in this area, I've absorbed and trained and learned this spiritual side of it, and I do all those things in the container. But then the journey itself, I lay you down with eye shades. I put on that playlist, and so it's like a combination of both. So it doesn't have to be either or. And here we do both, and I think that's the best way to do it. But yeah, it's really fascinating. The difference.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think, John, you had a question, right?
Hi, yeah, I do. Thanks. My question is for Gerardo, and briefly, a little bit of information about me and what I'm experiencing right now. Last year was a really special year for me. I went to the Eclipse Festival with Lexi in right there by Mazatlan, and it was very special for me. Yeah, hey, and amazing, amazing experience, very transformational. And then I was just kind of swept on to success from that point. I went to Spain right after that, to Ibiza, and DJ capital of the world, and you know I was just really successful during that time period right after the eclipse. And then fast forward, once I got back to the States, it was pretty hard. And then now this year, it's almost been a full year since I was in Spain, or it has been a full year. And this year, it's not the same for me. It's not the same experience of just everything's awesome and easy and fun, and I'm attracting amazing opportunities and success to me. And in fact, this year it's been challenging. Months keep going by. I just turned 29. I'm going to be 30 next year. And I have become afraid that I'm not going to get what I want out of my life in the time that I want it. And so, what would you say to me or to someone who's sort of lost that connection and kind of got out of the flow where everything was really sweet? And what would you say about the fear of that you're not going to get what you want out of your life at a certain time frame that you want it, or a certain age, 29 in my case? Thank you.
Is it a question for me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So a few things that I would recommend and suggest. Writing the book, most of my life I've experienced, these things as well. And the writing of the book was so much of that, right? Like I have to get this published, and then all these challenges would come in and just block me. And I mean, it was such a roller coaster, as is life. And so what I did, and what I would suggest, and I suggest everybody doing it, it seems kind of common sense, but is to like study the greatest people in the world that have ever dealt with these types of things, that's why I err to the philosophy of Stoic philosophy, whoever that is for you, that resonates with you, that you trust, the mentors, philosophers, somebody in your real life, maybe somebody in your family, but who has resilience and is able to, overcome obstacles. A huge part of this philosophy is the overcoming of obstacles, of turning obstacles and adversity into triumph, using those it's an art, really. Philosophy is like a skill. It's a skill set of how to flip everything around to your advantage. There's a modern book now called The Obstacle is the Way about this topic. Taken from Marcus Aurelius's one of his main quotes: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." So it's a perspective switch, perspective flip, and essentially that's the answer to all problems. Is and another part of this philosophy I love is these very universal truths that are very simple to understand. Again, like when we have an issue, it's not the thing itself that's the issue, it's our perception of it. It's not, and it's never the thing, because the thing, there's just what is, right? There's what's happening now in the present moment. Then we create a story, we make an opinion of it, we create a perception, which happens subconsciously in a thousandth of a second, right? Because it's based on our childhood traumas, our upbringings, our fears that we've cultivated, that our belief systems that are so far deep, right? It's just automatic. And so then the narrative just starts running. So what we have to do is go in deep to the deepest parts of ourselves, rewrite those programs, retrain yourself to, again, stick to the present moment. Like, problems are perception. Problems don't exist, because if there's even death, death is inevitable. Death is going to happen. Death is a part of life. Death is what gives life meaning. If it wasn't for death, life would be inconsequential. So if death isn't even a problem, then nothing's a problem, right? Because that's the worst thing that can happen. Or take it another direction. If you get an accident, or so you're walking and, I live in the forest in the mountains here. There's a river, I don't know. I fall over and I hurt myself. That's still not a problem, because there's just the laws of physics and the way things work. I missed a step and I fell, and that's just the consequences of living in life, right? So there's a big element of acceptance to this, which sort of Buddhism touches on, right? There's a lot of commonalities between Stoicism and Buddhism. So it's those things of accepting what is, rewriting the story, getting better at telling the story. This is why psychedelics are so powerful, because they allow you to go into the programming and rewrite it, but it takes training, it takes work, training. It's not easy, and it's never going to be easy. But that's essentially the basis of it, is the deepest part of yourself, writing that story.
Okay.
Hope that
Awesome.
helped.
Yeah, it did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'd like to hear from Rowan. He's also one of our portal panel speakers, and he was here at the last portal panel. But he told me on text today that he has something to say about fear. So I'd like to know what that is. You're muted, by the way. There you go.
I'm here. I know I'm unmuted. I think these are all very beautiful aspects. Thank you all for bringing what you have to the table. Yeah, I think that we're all conditioned from very early age to fear all kinds of things, and it goes back to that question, right? Who were you before you had a name, right? What did we fear before we knew that we were supposed to fear death? What did we fear before we knew we were supposed to fear social exclusion? And that's a journey that if anybody tells you they know the answer, they're lying to you. That's something we each can find by figuring out who we were before we had the name that we have. I'm going through yet another wave of identity disillusionment, which, throughout my life. I've done at least once a year, every year, sometimes twice a year. I really thought that I was stable in my last perspective of myself, but this round uh, comes with something new. This round has come with something completely new, which is it didn't it didn't destroy my continuity when I realized that I was just playing a role. And this time, the realization is that every time we have solidified in our identity as who we are or who we think we are, we live that and we impart that, and it will get to a point as we grow into it that we realize that too is the next layer of the role. And the thing about, ego death or whatever you want to call it, is it's the death of that role. And if we accept that the roles are temporary, and once they no longer feel like us, who we are, we can take a moment to thank that role for sheltering us, thank that role for giving us a way to share ourselves with the world, thank that role for giving ourselves a way to look at ourselves, and then let that role retire and not immediately try to seek the new self. Just let yourself be. And when you can truly find that state, that is when you will know how to let go of your fear. Because you are still someone, even when the role has been put down. That's what I have for this contribution. Thank you all.
Anybody
That was
else?
beautiful. Thank you. That was beautiful.
I kind of want to know what Onyx is thinking. But you don't have to answer if you're not
Yeah,
in.
hi everyone. Thank you so much. Very much food for thought and feeling and digestion in the kidneys and elsewhere. Yeah, I did want to say to John too, in my experience of growth, it's very normal after the expansion that more of the gunk is like, hey, this person's ready for this gnarly stuff. And it's like the next round of the spiral. So it's easy to see it as a problem. And it can also be seen as like, oh, this is my gift of growth coming back to support me.
Thank you very much.
Miss Jessie.
Yeah, I have a question for Gerardo. And I think Holly touched on this a little bit. And I'm going to go back and watch what I missed of your presentation, Holly. I'm sorry I'm late. I was late to this. So I have microdosed a little bit in the past. I have been kind of nervous about going full dose because I will likely just be on my own when I do so. So I have kind of a twofold question for you. First off, is how realistic is that nervousness that I have? That's something that other people have kind of like warned me about, but not necessarily people who know what they're talking about. And also second, like kind of high level, when do you recommend microdosing versus full doses, and kind of what's the difference in the effects of both, or the impact of both?
Yeah, good questions. Your question about nervousness, are you asking about general nervousness, if it's effective in treating that, or are you talking about nervousness about the journey? You're
Yeah,
thinking,
about the journey, those kind of like horror stories of like, oh, people
yeah,
like kind of lose control and don't know what's going on, and I don't know how much of that is real and just kind of
right.
propaganda.
Right, yeah, most of that is blown out of proportion. Most horror stories um, are, well, not that they're not true, but it's not the mushroom or the the psychedelic itself. It's done probably irresponsibly somehow, like going out to a party or something, or going out to a concert. That's not wise, I would say, because anything can happen, and then you're in this very altered state. So there's no real such thing as a bad trip. That's a big misconception as well. When it's done properly with the intention of healing in a proper container, whether that's, in a clinical setting or with a shaman. When the environment is controlled, then there really is no such thing as a bad trip. There's challenging journeys, and that's the whole point, is to really experience things that we bury down, you know. So most of the journeys here are very challenging, very challenging. What people would have called a bad trip, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but now we know and see direct correlation between the challenge itself and then the prolonged healing afterwards. There's direct correlations from universities, Johns Hopkins, where the more challenging the experience, the longer the healing. They would feel healed from whatever it was, anxiety, stress, for months up to a year after a very challenging journey, where conversely, if it was kind of an easy, mellow journey, there would be a little bit of improvement over a few months' time or so. So, very specific data on that. So nerves are completely normal, and even the most experienced people that I have ceremonies with, sometimes even I get nervous before every journey. So it's completely normal. You're not that's that fear is useful. Fear is not just all bad. We're alive, we evolved because of fear. We need a healthy fear of the ocean or big mountains. I'm a very avid extreme sports guy, skiing, rock climbing, all these things. Fear keeps us alive. It's just learning what fears are rational and what fears are not rational. So it's completely normal to feel those nerves. There's nothing, I mean, that's good. I'd be more worried if you didn't feel any nerves at all. Now, as far as the macro versus microdose that you asked about, they are both extremely useful. My work consists more of the macro dose, the big ceremonies, because again, you go in so deeply into your being, into your soul, that it really just heals and wipes clean a lot of gunk that's been built up our whole life. It's such a powerful experience. So there's no like, you can't walk away with an experience like that and have some sort, again, if it's done properly with somebody who's trained, without some sort of healing. You really can't. Where the microdosing works differently, it just works more prolonged, right? There is plenty of research on the neuroplasticity, and I have microdosed myself. I think it's great. It's kind of like nature's antidepressant. So, it depends on your life too, your life stuff. You're a very busy person and you don't happen to live in Mexico. It'd be hard to come around a ceremony. So microdosing you can incorporate into your life. You can go to work still if you just get the right dose figured out. So you can have the same effects, I would say, like the healing outcome in one ceremony. You can maybe achieve microdosing over 2-3 months time, 4 months time. So it's like prolonged, and it's a slow, methodical process, ideally with some sort of therapy. I use IFS, internal family systems, in my programs. Very powerful to get to know yourself, your different parts, your ego, and befriending all your parts and all that. So combined with the microdosing with therapy, it can be very effective. It just takes longer and it takes more dedication, I guess, because it's a very subtle feeling. So it's not just going to you're not going to meet God in the universe. So it's not as obvious and it's not as fast. But they're both incredible. And I actually always say that there's no reason to choose. Like, I would do both. If you have opportunity to do a ceremony, do that, and a microdose. You just will keep that neuroplasticity alive, combine that again with ongoing therapy, and then that's the best of both worlds. So really there's no either or. I think they're both great, and incorporate them however you can, whenever you can.
Thank you. I will check out your site too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will there be an opportunity to do ceremony during the Portal Festival? Are you going to be doing mushroom ceremonies at that time?
I hope so. I would love to. I would
Are
just
you
have to.
planning on it? Is it in the
Yeah.
works?
It would just depend if we have the space and if
Facilitate.
we can get some mushrooms, because I can't take them from here.
Oh, right.
Can you
We can.
work? Can you work that out for me? And then I would love to do a ceremony.
The guy who's in charge of Mercado is very resourceful, so he might
Do we
be
have somebody coming to hold Kambo ceremony?
combo. I don't
Yeah.
know about that.
If we find somebody, I would sit in Kambo.
All right.
Thank-
So I just wanted to remind everyone that our next portal gathering panel will be the second Wednesday of next month, which is what date? Do you remember, Agnieszka? I didn't check the date. We'll do that right now. We'll let you know in an email, but it will be June 11th would be the next portal panel.
Yes.
So hopefully everybody will be there.
Wait,
And
the next portal panel is about crypto and about how to make crypto work for you and use it to better your life. And I confirmed with Amin and JP. So we have some really quality crypto people talking next portal panel. So if you're at all interested in that, join us for the next portal panel, and it's going to be lovely in June, second Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's it. I'm done.
Drums are beating through the haze, whispers calling through the maze. Shadows dance beneath the moon. A fire's voice will speak its tune. Step through the portal into light. Leave behind the endless fight. Feel the earth beneath your soul. Let the rhythm make you whole. Wise winds carry echoes far. Ancient songs beneath each star. Hands collide like thunder's roar. Guided steps to what's in store. Step through the portal into light. Leave behind the endless fight. Feel the earth beneath your soul. Let the rhythm make you whole. Close your eyes and take the leap. Journey